Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with the playoff odds for the 2019 college football season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and please subscribe to the channel. That would be greatly appreciated. These are my odds, not anybody else's odds. These are my odds. I came up with this. The way I did it, the formula is take 400 and divide it up because it's 4 spots for the playoffs and 400, 10, 10, 100, 100, 100, 100. So that's how I did it. I came up with 25 teams that I think have a shot to make the playoffs. This is going to be very similar to my top 25 in the preseason. There's going to be a few changes, obviously, but I think these 25 teams are the 25 teams that have a shot at the college football playoffs in the 2019 season. So let's get into it. Top 10 here. Number 1, Clemson, 70% chance. Listen, as long as Clemson gets by Texas A&M and Syracuse, they should be undefeated. I know some South Carolina fans think they have a crack at them at home in the final week. I think South Carolina, they're going to be a desperate team this year. But I do think that Clemson will go into South Carolina and beat them. Other fan groups, Florida State obviously won. Florida State's a team that should be happy with 8-4. NC State, they always seem to think whenever they get Clemson at home, they have a crack at them. NC State is one of the better teams in the ACC, but they're not going to beat them. Wake Forest is one I've been hearing about. I don't think that will happen either. I mean, Clemson, they're going to go ahead. In my opinion, Clemson's just going to go right ahead. And as long as they beat Texas A&M and Syracuse, they're going to be 12-0 and make the college football playoffs. But I give that 30% room of error because you never know. And also, I wasn't going to give anybody really ahead of 70% anyways, a 70% chance of making the college football playoffs. I know ESPN gave, I think, Clemson an 83% chance or something. Yeah, I refuse to go that high. Number 2, Alabama. I gave them a 60% chance. Listen, Alabama, they're in the SEC. As long as they win the SEC, they should be in. LSU is a team, I'm telling you right now, that will give Alabama a run for their money in that division. They also get either Georgia or Florida in the SEC championship game. I think they'll beat Florida easily in the SEC championship game. Georgia, they outplayed them the past 2 games for 3 quarters. So that's going to be a game to watch, that SEC championship game. And I don't know if Alabama loses the SEC championship, if they have 2 losses, I don't know if they get in or not. I know name recognition is going to count towards something with Alabama because ESPN loves sucking Alabama's dick, but I don't know if 2 losses in the SEC is going to be enough for Alabama to get in. I do think Alabama, however, will lose a game in the regular season. I haven't decided which game. I've narrowed it down to 3 or 4. When we do my official college football prediction starting on June 1st, Alabama's June 2nd. That video will be out on June 2nd. You'll see who I have Alabama losing to then. But anyways, number 3, Oklahoma. I give them a 30% shot. A point that has been brought to my attention: as long as Oklahoma goes 12-1, they should be in. 13-0, they should be in. I do think Oklahoma is the best team in the Big 12. Sorry, Texas fans, you're not going to like what I'm going to say here for the next minute, but I'll get to Texas here soon. Oklahoma, that offense is just outstanding. It's going to be tough to stop that offense. The defense is bad, though. They got to improve defensively. I mean, Oklahoma is kind of that team. Is that the defense is the team? It's kind of that team with a great offense but a bad defense. So kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs of the college football landscape. But they got to improve that defense, because if they don't improve that defense, they might get into the college football playoffs 4 out of 5 times, but they'll go home probably 3 out of the 4 times in the first round. So Oklahoma, they got to fix that defense. But I think since they're in the Big 12, and I don't see really the Big 10 or the SEC really getting more than one team in. I think Oklahoma, I give them a bit of a nod with a 30% shot. Georgia, my fourth team with the highest odds, a 25% chance. And the next four teams, you could kind of just put them in any order, but I just put it in this order for certain reasons. Georgia, listen, this is their path. Win the SEC East and win the SEC championship game. And if they lose the SEC championship game, they better be 12-1. I mean, that's the only path. Georgia, I mean, to me, Georgia cannot be 11-2. They will not get in at 11-2 in the SEC. And it doesn't matter if they face Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M in the championship. They're going to have to go ahead and at least go 12-1 in my opinion. They do get Notre Dame out of conference, which is nice. The only other big games they're going to have is really Florida. So they really only have two big games in my opinion. Missouri's a team I wouldn't sleep on. Tennessee fans are going to tell you they have a shot against Georgia. I don't see it. But hey, Tennessee fans, if you're watching this, ESPN gives you a 2% shot at the college football playoffs, so hang in there for that. Personally, I do not have Tennessee on this list, but South Carolina fans, they think they have a crack at you guys. Auburn always thinks they have a crack at you guys. So, I mean, Georgia, they're going to be they're going to have some good games, but overall, I give them they get the fourth highest odds, in my opinion, to make the college football playoffs. Tied for fourth, Ohio State. I also give them a 25% shot. Here's the path for Ohio State. Win the Big Ten. And when I mean win the Big Ten, go undefeated. Or go 12-1. Don't lose a game 49-20. That's the path for Ohio State. Like, Ohio State could lose a game if they want to, but it has to be close. It can't be a blowout like the previous 2 years. You look at they don't really have a strong out conference schedule. It's 3 group of 5 teams. It's like Florida Atlantic. They do get Cincinnati and Florida Atlantic. They're not a bad team or anything. They're just like a 500 team right now. But they do get Cincinnati. That was a decent team in the American last season. And I forget who else they get, but it's a group of 5 team. Ohio State, they should beat. They should. I can't stress the word enough. Should. They should beat Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland, Michigan State, and they probably should beat Penn State as well in the Big Ten East. In the West, they get Nebraska, they get Wisconsin, and I believe they get. I want to say they get Minnesota. In the West, and they should go 3-0 in those. They do get Nebraska. They do get Nebraska on the road. A lot of people might pick Nebraska on that one. I haven't made my decision on that pick. And by the way, Ohio State football predictions will be sometime in early June, actually. So stay tuned for that. But Ohio State, I give them a 25% shot. Michigan, I give them a 25% shot. Here's the path for Michigan. Beat Ohio State and beat everybody else in your schedule. You get out conference game versus Notre Dame. You should beat them. It is in Michigan. Michigan should easily beat Rutgers, Indiana, and Maryland in the Big Ten East. They should beat Michigan State. Penn State, I forget if that game's in Michigan or is it in Pennsylvania. If it's in Michigan, they should beat them. The big game's going to be against Ohio State in the last week, though. And it's time for Michigan to win that game. I don't know who I'm picking yet in that game when my predictions come around. And by the way, Michigan will also be in early June as well. So a lot of these teams I'm talking about, they're going to be in early June. Some of these teams I'm talking about right now. But Michigan, they got to beat everybody on their schedule. I believe in the West, they get Iowa. I forget who the hell they get in the West. I think they get Illinois in one of their games, maybe. But Michigan, they gotta go at least 12-1 in my opinion to have a crack at. Number 7, not Wisconsin. Number 7, Washington. The first team in the Pac-12 here. One of the 3 teams in the Pac-12 I have on this list. Listen, Washington, they are going to be, in my opinion, they're very underrated right now. I think they're going to be at least 10-2. You look at their schedule, they don't really they get like BYU as a best out of conference game. That's not that good, but they do get to play the Pac-12 North, which includes Oregon and Stanford. I know they get one of the Arizona schools in the South, and I believe they get Utah again in the South as well. So I think they get USC. So I mean, they're going to get a strong schedule out of the Pac-12 South, the Pac-12 North. I mean, outside of Oregon State, all those teams are going to be considered good wins. They do get Stanford on the road, but I'm not pretty sure if they're going to win that game. But Washington, you got Jacob Easton. That offense should be at least decent, and I always think the Washington defense is always at least decent. So we're going to see what we get out of Washington. I know they lose a lot of talent, but I think they could make a crack at the college football playoffs. That's why I give them a 25% shot. Okay, I'm going to start moving a little bit faster. LSU, number 8. Listen, here's the path for LSU. I don't think LSU needs to win the SEC or even go to the SEC championship game to make the college football playoffs. If Alabama's 12-0 and LSU is 11-1 and the only loss is a close game to Alabama, I think they get in over Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Washington. That's why they get a 20% shot, because that's a very possible that's very possible scenario right there. Also, they could just go to the SEC championship and win it. They're going to have to they have Alabama and Texas A&M. Alabama on the road, Texas A&M at home. Those are the 2 biggest games for them in the SEC. They get Florida at home as well. That's always huge. They get Vandy though as the other out of conference, not out of conference, cross division game. Basically, that should be a win. It is in Vandy, though. Out of conference, they get Texas, Utah State, Georgia Southern, and I think some no-name, some FCS opponent. That Texas game is going to be huge for LSU. So, if they could win that Texas game and beat Texas A&M, beat Florida, beat everybody else like Auburn, Mississippi State, and then only lose a close game to Alabama on the road, that's the LSU's best path, in my opinion. Oregon, number 9, give them a 15% shot. A lot of hype around this Oregon football team right here. I do see it, but I don't know. I think they might be a year too early. That's my only concern. I do think they are a top 20 team, though. I will say that. Probably a top 15 team at the end of the year. Oregon, they do get Washington and Stanford on the road. That is my only concern about Oregon. They might lose both of those. They also get Auburn and neutral site as well out of conference. They could lose that one as well. And out of the Pac-12 South, I believe they don't get Utah, but they get they get one of the California teams in Southern California, one of the Arizona teams. I think they get Colorado. They could go 3-0 in that. But Oregon, I think Oregon's at least going to lose one game this year. If they could go 12-1, they could get in. They could. Number 10, Florida, 15% shot as well. This is Florida's path. Get to the SEC championship game. I don't think Florida actually has 2 paths now. Thinking about it. Get to the SEC championship game at 12-0, and either beat Alabama, LSU, or lose to Alabama, LSU, or go 11-1. Your only loss is to Georgia, a close loss to Georgia and Jacksonville, and Georgia is 12-0. That is the only 2 paths I see for Florida at this time. Florida, they get absolutely no one out of the well, let me take that back. They get Florida State and Miami actually out of conference. 2 ACC teams. Florida State's in the tour right now. It's a dumpster fire. Miami, a lot of hype around that football team right now. So those are their 2 out of conference games. They also get across the division. They're going to get Auburn at home. That should be an interesting one, and they get their annual game against LSU on the road. That is a good cross division schedule right there. If they can win both of those, that's a good thing for Florida. They gotta beat Georgia. They gotta beat South Carolina. They gotta beat Tennessee. They gotta beat everybody in the SEC East. The problem with Florida the past 2 years or the past few years is that they'll lose games they shouldn't lose to. Like, for instance, they have a 3-game losing streak against Missouri. They got to beat Missouri if they want a shot at the college football playoffs. They'll lose to a team like South Carolina. They got to beat South Carolina if they want a shot at the college football playoffs. So Florida, they gotta win those games, and they gotta hope some things happen. But at bare minimum, they gotta be 11-1 at the end of the regular season. So that was the top 10. Now we'll go 11 through 20. I'm going to start moving kind of quickly through these teams because I feel like I'm taking too long of a time here for some reason. Anyways, number 11, Texas. I give them a 10% shot. Listen, Texas is the most overhyped team in college football right now. Texas is not back. I did a video saying they're not back. They're lucky they don't have the Maryland Terps on their schedule because my Terps will kick their ass for the 3rd straight year. Book it. But anyways, Texas, they get LSU on the non-con. That's a very good, intriguing matchup. They'll probably be favored a little bit in that one since they are the home team. LSU could very well go in there and beat them. So that's a must-win for Texas. You also get Louisiana Tech, I believe, is your other out-of-conference game that's worth mentioning. That's a win as well. That should be a win as well for you. Louisiana Tech, though, is one of the better group of 5 teams, though. And then then you get the Big 12. Oklahoma, Iowa State are really your only 2 threats, in my opinion. Oklahoma, you get them in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Basically, that's probably a 50-50 game. You won it last year, but then you lost to them in the Big 12 championship. I mean, I don't know if you're Texas, if you should be happy about that or not. You did, however, you did win the Sugar Bowl last year against Georgia, and hopefully at least you get back to the New Year's Six Bowl. But Texas, they cannot lose games to like West Virginia or Oklahoma State. They can't lose those type of games. That's the problem for Texas. They can't lose those type of games. Number 12, Utah. Utah, it's their division to lose in the Pac-12 South, in my opinion. Yes, some people will be like, USC. Yeah, USC is a dumpster fire right now. The only concern I have for Utah is they do get Washington out of the North, and that could be the only loss. BYU, that always seems to be a very competitive game. And I forget who else they get out of the I forget who else they get. I think they get Northern Illinois or something. But Utah, Utah should be at least 9-3. But their path is go 12-0 or 11-1. If you go 11-1, have that loss be on the road to Washington and beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship and go 12-1. Because that means you beat everybody on your schedule. That's the only path. Number 13, I have Notre Dame with a 10% shot here. Listen, Notre Dame, I don't think they'll get in. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be in the college football playoffs, even if they go 12-0 after last year's performance. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. They're not going to be. They're not going to be in the college football playoffs. They get Michigan. That's probably they get to go on the road against Michigan and Georgia. They're going to lose at least one of those 2, so they'll be a bare minimum. They'll be best case scenario for them, in my opinion, as 11-1. So I just don't see Notre Dame in the college football playoffs. But since they were in it last year, I give them a 10% shot. Number 14, Penn State, 8% shot here. I never count out James Franklin. He's a head coach I will never count out. He is in the Big Ten East. I do think Michigan and Ohio State are better than Penn State as of right now. They do get. I do believe they do get. I think they do get Michigan at home. So we'll see what happens there. You have to go on the road against Ohio State. That might be a loss. Other games, Michigan State. That should be a team Penn State should actually beat. Maryland's a team they should be, even though we get them off a bye Friday night. At home, by the way, Rutgers, Indiana, teams they should be out of the West. I believe they get Wisconsin, Illinois, Purdue, something like that. Something like that. I don't know. I forget. My apologies, but Penn State, they're going to at least be an 8-9 win program at the end of the regular season. Number 15, I have Nebraska with an 8% chance. Listen, Nebraska, a lot of hype around this team. I still think they're a year out. I'm not buying into the hype. I believe Scott Frost will be great one day at Nebraska and get Nebraska back where they have been in the 90s and such. But I still think they're at least a year out. Doesn't mean I'm wrong though. Nebraska, they get Ohio State, Maryland, and I forget who else to get out of the Big Ten East. That Maryland game is a trap game for Nebraska. Ohio State is at home, but Ohio State is the better team. You look at the Big Ten West; they play everybody outside the Big Ten in the Big Ten West. Iowa, Northwestern, Purdue, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Those 5 teams, you could very well lose to all 5 of those teams. So Nebraska, and you also get Colorado. You also get Colorado in the non-con in Colorado. So Nebraska could very well not make a bowl game again. I personally think they will make a bowl game, but I don't know if they're going to be a 10-win team at the end of the season. Number 16, Texas A&M, 8%. I'm kind of buying the hype around this team. There's a lot of hype around this team as well. They do have to go on the road to LSU and Georgia out of the East. I do think they're going to probably lose both of those. I also think they're going to probably lose that game on the road against Clemson. So that's 3 losses right there. If they could somehow win all those games and beat Alabama at home and just beat everybody else, like if Texas A&M, if they're 11-1, it doesn't matter if they lose their SEC championship game, in my opinion, they're in. That schedule is tough as hell for Texas A&M. I mean, out of conference, you get Clemson. You probably get 2 FCS opponents and a Group of 5 opponent. I think you get Texas State in the Sun Belt. That should be a win. But in the SEC West, if they could beat LSU and Alabama and beat everybody else like Auburn, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and then they go ahead and beat Georgia and South Carolina out of the East, go 8-0 in the SEC, and just lose to Clemson. Well, they probably will be in, but in the SEC championship game, and then go to the SEC championship game, and then beat Georgia again at 12-1, they will be in the college football playoffs. So there's a path there for Texas A&M, but I highly doubt it. Number 17, Miami. Listen, so there might be some controversy about this one. I give them a 6% chance. Here's the path for Miami. Win the ACC Coastal at 11-1, and then just lose to Clemson. Or even better yet, I even have a better scenario for y'all. Go 12-0, and then just lose to Clemson in the ACC championship game. A close game, though. A close game to Clemson. That's your path. If you lose to Florida, even if you make the ACC championship game, I don't think there's a path for you. I think that game against Florida is a must-win for both teams, Florida and Miami. It's going to be interesting to see on August 24th at 7 o'clock on ESPN. But Miami, they got to go 12-0 in the regular season for them to have a shot at the college football playoffs. Number 18, our first Group of 5 team. Yes, I threw Group of 5 teams in the equation as well. Houston, 5% chance. The reason why Houston gets a nod above UCF, and though UCF fans are going to be pissed at this, they're out conference schedule. If they could go on the road and beat Oklahoma, beat Washington State in the neutral site game, if they could go ahead and beat those two teams, I forget who else they get in the non-con, and then beat everybody else except UCF in the regular season, then get UCF in the championship game at 11-1, beat UCF and go 12-1. They won all their games on their schedule, technically. They beat everybody on their schedule. Now, granted, they did lose one, but that's a pretty impressive resume. They're going to be a team that's number 3 on the odds. They're going to be a Washington State team that's going to be a borderline top 25 team. That's pretty good if you're Houston. And you're going to beat UCF. They're going to be ranked. Memphis, they're going to be probably ranked at some point through the season. I believe if you get Cincinnati out of the East, they might be ranked. So, South Florida, I think you guys do get South Florida. They might be ranked. So there's a path there for Houston. There really is. But I don't think it'll happen unless they go undefeated at 13-0. Number 19, Iowa. The only reason Iowa's on here with a 5% shot is that's a team I just never count out. They're always pretty consistent. To me, they could very easily win the Big Ten West. If they win the Big Ten West, and let's say they're 11-1, and they beat Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten championship at 12-1, they gotta be considered. So that's why I was on here. Number 20, Auburn at 5% shot. Some people might be turning off the video with this one. Listen, Auburn, here's the path. You get Georgia and Alabama at home this year. Beat both of them. Just beat both of them like you did a few years ago. You also get Texas A&M and LSU on the road. Split those two. You beat Mississippi State at home. You beat Ole Miss and Arkansas. Out of the East, I always spoke about Georgia. You get Florida on the road. Win that game. So that puts them at 7-1 in the SEC. Go ahead to the non-con. You guys get Oregon at a neutral site in Dallas, Texas. Win that. And win all the other non-con games. I think you guys get Tulane at home, win that, and I forget who else y'all get. Auburn could go 11-1. Let's say they don't get to the SEC championship game. Go 11-1 and still get in. We've seen before with Alabama in the SEC. Or they could go 11-1, get to the SEC championship game and win it and go 12-1. That's how Auburn will get into the college football playoffs. And the only reason they're on this list is because they get Georgia and Alabama at home, by the way. And then the 21 through 25, I'm sorry about the typo. I should have said 21 through 25, not 20 through 25. 21, UCF, 3% shot. UCF, they get Stanford at home, and they get Pittsburgh on the road as their two non-con games. And they get someone else as well. I forget who, though. Florida Atlantic, and then they get, I think, Florida A&M, if I'm not mistaken. UCF could very well lose one of those two non-con games. If they lose one of those two non-con games, let's say they lose one of those two non-con games, they may already be eliminated. They also have a game against Houston, which is going to be tough. South Florida could be a very good team this year. They're not on this list, but they could be a very decent team. And then they also have Temple and Cincinnati. UCF, I think they're going to lose a game in the regular season. That's just my opinion. I don't know who yet. We'll get to it when I get to the UCF football predictions. But I think they're going to lose a game this year. To who? I don't know. But UCF, the non-con schedule is not as good as Houston's, and that's why Houston is above UCF in the odds to the college football playoffs. That's why, if you're a UCF fan. Nothing personal, just the non-con schedules. Number 22, Iowa State. 3% shot. I think Iowa State is the dark horse for the Big 12 at this point. They got to beat Oklahoma and Texas and beat whoever the hell gets to the Big 12 championship, though, to have a shot. Because Iowa State, they're going to beat the Kansas teams. They're going to beat Texas Tech. Baylor, they should beat. It's probably a 50-50 game against Oklahoma State. So those are 4 wins. Those are 5 wins right there, possibly, in the Big 12. They should beat West Virginia as well. I'm forgetting somebody. Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas, TCU. That's a 50-50 game. So really, as long as they could beat Oklahoma and Texas and then beat whoever gets to the Big 12 championship game, let's say at 11-1, 12-1, or 13-0, Iowa State will get into the college football playoffs. 23 Stanford. I got 23 Stanford, 3% shot. Listen, Stanford, the only reason they're on this list is because they get Oregon and Washington at home. They also get to play the Pac-12 North, the better division out of the Pac-12 as well. So basically, Stanford, they'll go ahead and they'll have a shot against both teams. And Stanford, they could win both of those. I don't think Stanford will get into the college football playoffs personally, but Stanford, we'll see what happens. Number 24 and number 25, it doesn't matter which order you put them. Boise State and Fresno State. Boise State, I put ahead of Fresno State because of the name recognition, honestly. Boise State, their biggest out-of-conference game is going to be Florida State and neutral site in Jacksonville. They also get Marshall as well, and I think they get BYU. So they'll have okay out-of-conference schedule, but they're going to have to go 12-0. Or 13-0 to have a shot, in my opinion. Fresno State, listen, they're out of conference schedule. USC and Minnesota's on it, and I think they get I think they play a nobody, and they might play BYU or somebody else. I don't know, but Fresno State, they have the better non-con schedule. But they play in my opinion, they play in a more wide open division in the Mountain West, the West Division. So we'll see what happens. But overall, Fresno State and Boise State kind of get the same odds. And by the way, Mountain West, they have announced, I think, 45 games that are going to be on national TV. So go check that out. But anyways, those are my odds. Comment down below. Tell me if you agree or disagree with me. I know it was kind of a long video. Sorry about that. But I just want to get all the information in there. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And this is McD the Beast signing off.